everyone, and welcome to my July reading wrap up. I had a really good reading month in July, so let's talk about what I read and what I thought about it. And quickly before we start, if you can hear the fan going, I apologise, but right now it is very hot in this room, so I need it going so I don't melt. First up is Transmogrified. This is 14 Fantastical Tales of Trans Magic, edited by G. Harron Davis, and this collection was so good. I really enjoyed all of the stories in here. There's so many authors in here. Well, actually all of the authors in here I want to check out more from because I enjoyed them all so much. It was a brilliant collection, and the ones I want to quickly highlight as my absolute favourites are Halloween Love by Sonora Reyes, Verity by Renee Reynolds, Dragons Name Themselves by A.R. Capetta and Corey McCarthy, By the Hand by Nick Traxler, If I Can't Have Love I Want Power by G. Harron Davis, The Hollow King by Jonathan Lenore Caston, Genderella by Mason Diva, and The Door to the Other Side by Emery Lee. But all of the stories in here were so well done, so brilliant. I wanted more from absolutely all of them. I'm definitely going to be checking out every author that was mentioned in here because they were all absolutely brilliant, and I adored every single second of reading this book. I then also read Such Big Teeth by Gabby Hutchinson Crouch, and this one was so much fun. This is the second one in the Darkwood series, which is essentially a series where all of the fairy tales exist in the world together, and we're following Hansel and Gretel while Gretel is in the Darkwood where the fairy tales have been banished to, and Hansel on the outside as they're trying to figure out what's going on, how they can improve the lives of the fairy tale characters and fight back against this really xenophobic oppression that is going on in this world. And this is so much fun to read because while it's dealing with some quite heavy topics, it is done in a very sort of child-friendly way in a lot of ways, and I really like that. I also really like that this was really satirical in a lot of ways as well. That reminded me a lot of Terry Pratchett, just like the first book did. I loved all of that. I especially loved the plotline in here that there was a election in here, and I'm not counting this as a spoiler because it's a very small part of the book, but as part of the election there is an orange candidate who is very xenophobic, very sexist and this kind of thing, and it's very clear who that was satirising, which I really enjoyed. And I just generally really like this one. I love how this takes the fairy tale characters and really gives them a new and interesting spin. I especially love the spins on Snow White herself. I really want a spin-off book with Snow White, to be honest, because she is fantastic in this series and I want more from her. But I also really loved as well the Red Riding Hood interpretation, which I thought was a really interesting take on that tale. And they were my two favourites, but I absolutely loved all of the rest of it as well, and all of the different characters and how they're interpreted and the storyline that's going on and the message behind these books and all of this kind of thing. I am absolutely loving this series and I cannot wait to continue on with it. And the final book I have to mention before I go into the comics is Jurassic Park, because I finally read the book after years of absolutely loving the movies and never reading the book. I finally read the book and I really like this one. I really love seeing the basis for the movies within the book and seeing like all of these scenes that have been taken from this book throughout all of the 7 movies and seeing the inspiration for that. I loved also seeing the big differences between the books and the films as well, with things like the fact that Lex is a very different character in the book compared to the films, and then also the fact that Hammond is very much the bad guy in the books as well, and seeing that kind of sort of more evil side to Hammond compared to the movies, where he's still very much kind of like the bad guy, but at the same time he's kind of more, I should say, can I say cuddly? He's more Hammond in the films. I don't know how to describe it, but he's very much a seemingly nicer character in the movies compared to the books, and seeing that sort of contrast was really fascinating to me. I loved as well seeing more from Nedry as well in the book and seeing more of his motivations and things like this. I found all of that really fascinating, and I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was fantastically done, and I'm definitely going to be continuing on with the series. And then as for the comics, the first thing I need to mention is Doctor Strange in Asgard issue 5. So I obviously can't tell you too much about this one because it's obviously the 5th issue in the series, but I really like this one. I really like how it wrapped up the storyline and we saw what was actually going on, who committed the murder from the first issue, all of this kind of thing. I thought it was brilliantly done. I also really love the artwork again, so it looks like this on the inside, and it was just generally so much fun, and I gave it 5 stars again because Derek Landy writing Doctor Strange in Asgard, what could possibly go wrong? This was the absolute perfect comic for me this month. And then we get onto the Fantastic Four stuff, and the first thing I need to mention is Fantastic Four Life Story. And this is a really quick rundown of basically who the Fantastic Four are, who their villains are, all of this kind of thing. And it's also turning the story of the Fantastic Four where they actually age basically like normal people would from the 60s through to now, instead of being perpetually like in their 30s and 40s like we usually see in the comics. And this is a fantastic one to read, especially if you are brand new to the Fantastic Four and you've got absolutely no idea about the characters, the powers, or like the villains they usually face or anything else. This is a fantastic primer for that, and I really enjoyed it. I also read Fantastic Four and FF by Jonathan Hickman, and this was incredible. I can definitely see why this is considered one of the greatest Fantastic Four runs of all time, because quite frankly it deserved that hype because it was so good. The twists and turns of this one, the things it introduced like the Council of Reeds was also fantastic. I loved Valeria's storyline as well, with her really using her intelligence and really outwitting everybody else around her, despite the fact that she is literally barely like 4, I think, at this point. She is very much a child at this point, and she is outwitting absolutely everybody. I really loved that. I also really loved as well Franklin's storyline throughout here as well. I thought that was done excellently. The time travel elements as well was done so well, and I just really enjoyed this one. I only have one problem with it though that I do want to very quickly point out, and that is in the first volume of this someone uses the R slur. It happens the once and then never again, and I'm really hoping that that was used because it was a sign of the times of when this was written, because this was written in the early 2000s, and I am hoping that Jonathan Hickman has since learned from that, and that was very much not okay, and I am really hoping that this was just a sign of the times and Jonathan Hickman is not doing that anymore and he has learned better. But I did just want to very quickly highlight that if you are going to be reading this one, that there is a singular use of the R slur in the very first volume. I then also read Fantastic Four by Dan Slott, and this was a partial reread and also a partial let's actually finally finish this series, because I've been reading this series for about 3-4 years now, I think it is, and I finally reread the original stuff and then also finished this series and really enjoyed it. I really love the interpretation of Johnny in this one, where he was being more than a womanizer and seeing him kind of wanting to grow up a little bit more while also falling back on bad habits. I really enjoyed that. I also loved Ben and Alicia's relationship throughout this story. I thought that was done really well, especially with Ben constantly being like, we are not going to be having shenanigans, because every single time we go and do something fun, shenanigans happen, and they will not happen this time, and then they inevitably happened. I really loved all of that. I also really loved Franklin's storyline throughout here as well. I thought Franklin was done really well, given the circumstances his character was going through. Also, the family dynamics of this one was just so much fun, and I just really loved it, and I am so glad I finally finished the series. And then I read one more Dan Slott run, and that was the Silver Surfer run, and this was again so much fun. This is basically giving the Silver Surfer a Doctor Who type storyline, where he meets a human woman and then takes her through the stars, and they travel the stars together and get into various different mishaps and shenanigans and this kind of thing. And I really enjoyed this interpretation of the Silver Surfer, because a lot of the times the Surfer can be very much this kind of like dark character who ends up with a lot of like depressing storylines and things like this, just because of the nature of his being. And this one was so light and fun and just brilliant and bonkers at times, and I had a really good time reading it. And that is absolutely everything I read in the month of July. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you read in July, I'd love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a surfboard emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to my Etsy store. This is bookish merch if you want to treat yourself to something bookish today, or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But till next time everyone, bye!